brutal to watch.
Speedster.
It doesn't matter.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to week 5 of the Avenger League fantasy season. We're coming off of week 4, a little bit of a less exciting week than we had in week 3. Week 3, having a lot of those Monday night late primetime finishes. Week 4 being a little bit more tame. Most games being wrapped up in the noon and the afternoon windows, which I guess you can expect with 2 extremely shitty primetime games on Sunday Night Football and Monday. Chiefs are fine, but not a lot of fantasy stars in a lot of those games. Even the one game, Trevor and Raleigh, that came down to Monday night was a little bit out of hand, right on the cusp of out of hand, going into Monday night, and Kenneth Walker just kind of put that over the top. But a fun week nonetheless. Those noon and afternoon windows were action packed and were a blast. It's just always a little more fun when prime time is prime time. So after going all of that, let's go ahead and jump into the rankings and how they move. Oh, this is my team. Don't look at my shit. Jump into the rankings and any movement we saw this week. Not a ton. Top 2 still the same. Wade and myself both winning this week and staying there. Cameron moved up a spot into 3rd place with Andrew losing and dropping down. Andrew not taking 4th place. Raleigh, the big mover of the week, jumping all the way from 9th up to 4th. Noticing he swapped places with Tim. John staying put in 6th. Ashley moving up a spot in a loss, weirdly enough, to 7th. Head to head, always a blast. Charlie moving down to 8th. As I mentioned, Tim dropping down to 9th, and Trevor staying put in last place after his very high scoring loss to Raleigh. And funny enough, Trevor is now behind one of the few people he could be behind in a non-head-to-head tiebreaker. Last week, the wheel mini game was highest scoring bench, which was won by me. Dominating performance from my bench, just absolutely incredible. Let's see what they put up here. It was I think it was in the 70s maybe. Yeah, I'll just give it some time. 90.34 points coming out of the bench. I think I looked at it, and outside of Justin Herbert and Christian McCaffrey, I think I actually started the worst possible combination of players I could have started. But it got me $10, so I'm happy with it. This week, let's go ahead and figure out what we're going to be doing. That's what we like to see right there. A nice classic fantasy mini game, just the highest scoring team of the week. Not that you weren't always trying, but put your best lineups out there. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward, pretty simple, pretty fun to keep up with. Some of the big stories from last week. And honestly, even a bigger story going into this week is going to be the return of a bunch of the IR players, most importantly, Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor, and what they're going to look like coming out of the gate. Are they going to hit the ground running? Are they going to have, kind of a weird preseason warm-up period? How do they fit into the current landscape of their teams? And more importantly, how viable are they going to be in fantasy for the next couple weeks as they kind of settle back into things? The biggest fantasy story from this week, Christian McCaffrey is insane. 4 touchdowns, should have had a 5th. Was going for a franchise record, and Kyle Shanahan said no and let Brock Purdy keep it, which I thought was pretty selfish of him. Anthony Richardson is a bona fide superstar. He's awesome. CJ Stroud is the real deal, which means that we have just a deadly quarterback battle in the AFC South. I know Trevor Lawrence is kind of struggling right now, but I think that's just a pseudo sophomore slump from him. Obviously not counting his Urban Meyer true rookie season. This being his sophomore year of having a not brain dead head coach. Um, outside of the Titans, the AFC South have exciting young quarterbacks. It's weird. It's exciting. It is kind of gross that Anthony Richardson plays for the Colts. Just seeing somebody that electric in that uniform at the quarterback position is jarring. But he looks awesome. And the Bengals are dead. I don't know what else to do. With them, like, just bench Joe Burrow. He can't play. I don't know. Yeah, whatever. Good luck, Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow, and I hope your calf is okay. Big waiver moves this week. My favorite move of the week, Jameson Williams to Andrew. Andrew, I believe, is kind of struggling at wide receiver, if I'm remembering correct. Yeah, DJ Moore, Chris Olave. If only he had like one of the greatest receivers of all time, maybe a little bit overlooked in his current situation with the rotation at quarterback, but still able to produce nonetheless. He could probably use someone like that. So maybe he's going to go with Jameson Williams and see if that gets him there. Ashley's finally given up on Kyle Pitts. Jake Ferguson is now on her team, and I've already noticed is in her starting lineup. The Khalil Mobile has left the station back to Timothy Adams' roster. So we'll see how many times we go through that whole rigmarole this season. And Trevor, once again, being the number one waiver priority, got the breakout star of the week. Shocked he didn't go for Jameson Williams, but he got Michael Wilson, who had a pair of touchdowns on Sunday for the Cardinals. So that's your big waiver moves. Before we get into the games, I will go ahead and tell you that it's been a busy week, and I have written down nothing to prepare for this. I'm going to try to not ramble as I was known to do last year, and I think I've already let this intro go longer than I ever did this year. So Raleigh, if you wanted an hour-long episode, this might be it, but don't get your hopes up. We'll see what happens. Having said that, we always start with the number one team, which is still Wade. I don't know if I said this at the top. I'm viewing this as a big separation Sunday. There are a lot of matchups that can cause some huge momentum swings, one way or the other. A couple different people with the same records or I would say close records, but it's week 5. All the records are close. But a lot of people with the same records and what are going to be important matchups coming down the stretch when it comes to tiebreakers. This is not one of those matchups as far as tiebreakers go, I don't think, with Wade at 4-0 playing Andrew at 2-2. But I do think that this is going to be a very crucial week for Andrew. He's coming off of a just piss poor performance. His team put up not a lot, 65.9 points. It has to be, I'm not going to go look and do it, but it has to be by far his worst performance since joining the Avenger League. Obviously, a lot of that comes from Joe Burrow struggling, Travis Kelce being distracted by Taylor Swift. Chris Olave had a catch. That sucks. God, man. Only you had a major upgrade at wide receiver. Speaking of major upgrades at wide receiver, Devontae Adams has been a huge just spark for Wade's team. I think it took his team from good to great. So yeah, it's a little plug-in that had nothing at all to do with what I was talking about before. But Andrew kind of on the fence here, teetering. If you let that 65-point performance get away from you, trust me, that shit can spiral really fast. It only takes one bad week to start losing confidence, and then your boys don't show up. So let's look at some positives for Andrew. Joe Burrow's playing the Cardinals. He doesn't have an injury designation, it appears, at all. So maybe he's finally actually healthy, and not, maybe a little bit mobile. Alvin Kamara, it was week 1. He had 13 catches for 33 yards, which is one of the funniest fucking stat lines I've ever seen. But he's getting warmed up. He's getting back into things. He's not quite as explosive in the open field, and he's also not being targeted downfield. So we'll see if that changes. Some negatives here for Andrew. Obviously, we talked about Travis Kelce and Joe Burrow not playing up to their standard. But having 2 Saints at this point, I saw a tweet today that the Saints have not scored more than 21 points in 10 straight games, which is not a good stat. Travis Kelce does get the Vikings this week. And I said it a couple weeks ago when he played the Bears that he would have 3 touchdowns. He didn't. He had 1 for 69 yards. Nice. But he does get a just extremely vulnerable Vikings team. Taylor Swift shouldn't be there, so maybe, you know, it's a 325 game. It's not in prime time. I think a lot is going to be made about distractions in Kansas City this week. And they look to refocus, and I think Travis Kelce does have a pair of touchdowns at least. Jumping over to Wade's team and what he's looking like. Yeah, I've talked about James Cook the last couple of weeks with him, just being just pure consistency. Finally got in the end zone this week against Miami. Had a ton of production through the air again. Not a great rushing performance, but you know the Bills were up and slinging it, and I think towards the end of it they just kind of leaned on Latavius Murray a little bit to kind of put the game away. He does get Jacksonville this week, who is a pretty vulnerable rush defense. Yeah, number 11 against running back, so not elite by any circumstances. I do worry about a kind of a letdown game here from the Bills. We remember a couple years ago the Josh Allen sack Josh Allen game. What was it, 9-6, 9-3, something like that. You know, I'm not saying it's going to be that bad, but kind of similar circumstances. Huge game. Oh, and it's in London. Forgot about that early game. Fuck. Yeah, good luck. Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to talk about here with Wade's team. His team stacks. Puka Nacua. This will be the week. Maybe not this week. Next week, I think is going to be more indicative of what Puka Nacua's role looks like going forward with Cooper Kupp back in the lineup. I don't usually talk defenses here, but I am interested to see if Wade makes a change with the 49ers defense with Dallas. The Dallas game in primetime on Sunday night. They're playing a very viable offense. The 49ers have had just a cupcake schedule that they've just been steamrolling. But Dak likes to throw interceptions, so maybe you roll the dice and hope for a pick six. Or the Cowboys just actually suck, which is also possible. As far as making a pick here, Joe Burrow playing the Cardinals is interesting to me, and nobody has ever needed a win more than the Bengals need to find something right now. And like I said, Travis Kelce finally distraction free. I do think Andrew's team starts to put it together a little bit this week, and he does have more favorable matchups than Wade does. So I'm going to call it. I'm going to call the upset here, and I'm going to say that Andrew gets going in the right direction, and Wade takes his first loss of the fantasy season and really starts to open things up for the field here. Jumping on next into second place, the second place matchup, and this is obviously, you know, thinking of my team, where I kind of came up with the separation Sunday. You know, thought, idea, whatever. Cameron and myself are playing both at 3-1, both vying for second place behind Wade, possibly jumping into first, depending on how the week goes. With scoring, I don't think Cameron or myself have played Wade up to this point. When did Cameron lose? Excuse me. Week 1. Oh, they have. Okay. Yeah, so Cameron not having a spot to jump into first place here, but making it interesting nonetheless. I do get Justin Herbert on a bye this week, which I have replaced with CJ Stroud. Against the Falcons, I'm very confident in that. You know, at least put up 20 and kind of hang with, you know, some of what Justin Herbert does. But talking about Travis Kelce, I think the scariest part of Cameron's team is that game, the Chiefs versus the Vikings. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is just a monster and is going to put up points against anybody, but we just saw Zach Wilson shred that Kansas City secondary. I think Justin Jefferson is in line for a monster day. If Kirk gets even 2 seconds to throw the ball without Chris Jones being in his face, I think Justin Jefferson could go crazy. Conversely, though, that kind of the same thing that I'm looking at with TJ Hawkinson on my side. So, you know, a little bit of damage control there. But Patrick Mahomes shredding the Vikings and Justin Jefferson shredding the Chiefs. That game is going to be a nightmare. for me to watch, a nightmare for me to be a part of, unless a tight end catches the football, and then I don't really care. This will be Christian McCaffrey's biggest test to date. He playing a dominant Cowboys defense up to this point. We have seen them get shredded a little bit by a running game with Arizona 2 weeks ago, so that gives me a little bit of hope. And by the same token, that this is the best team that McCaffrey's ever played, has played this season. This is by far the best team that the Cowboys will play. In my opinion, the best team in the NFL. Breece Hall season is here. He's getting the Broncos, who have just been torched on the ground and through the air, and on off. It's been bad for the Broncos. But Robert Saleh made the announcement today. Breece Hall, the training wheels are off. He will not be restricted any longer. And what a time for that to come up. Then against the Denver Broncos. I'm so excited. Can't wait. Literally nothing can go wrong. So excited. Yeah, that's it. I'm really excited. As far as making a prediction here, a lot of the other games, I think the guys are going to do what they're going to do. Achane is interesting to see if he can have. I was going to say a bounce, but I mean, he 101 yards and 2 touchdowns, 203 yards and 2 touchdowns the week before. The dude's a monster, and he's getting the Giants. That's also fucking terrifying. I forgot Cameron got him. I'm so mad about that. Anyway, he's terrifying. Do I feel confident? Yes, I think Breece Hall can keep up with Achane. And at that point, I'm just worried about I need just literally anyone to try to keep up with Justin Jefferson. And I think I'll be in good shape. I love my wide receiver matchups this week. So having said all that, bet on yourself. I'm gonna win. Next, actually, I'm gonna save that one for last. So next, I'm gonna go to. I guess we can keep it in order. Raleigh versus Ashley. Raleigh putting together a pretty dominant 3-week stretch here, in which he did lose one of those games, but just points. And kind of teams, I think, about to start. I'm not going to say heading on opposite paths, but meeting up closer. Having a point where the performance is going to start to taper together. Saying that because Raheem Mostert for Raleigh has been just a spark plug, but Achane has fully taken over that backfield, it looks like, and Jeff Wilson is right around the corner. He did not start practicing. I was keeping up with that, so he's still probably a week or two away at least, but that time is coming. Same for Zach Moss, and of course Jonathan Taylor sitting on the other side, who was a full participation in practice today, and looks like he is ready to play on Sunday. Still not in Ashley's starting lineup, but I think that will change. At this point, I don't know how you even worry about starting Najee Harris. I definitely slot in Jonathan Taylor, and that gives her a pretty nasty 3-headed monster of DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, and Saquon Barkley, assuming he returns healthy and performing at what we know he can do. And just kind of killing a lot of what Raleigh has building up on the other side. David Montgomery looks like he probably has taken control of that backfield fully. I don't know what's going on with Gibbs. There's a chance he just kind of sucks, and maybe the Lions know that. I don't think that's true. He's awesome every time he touches the ball, but I think they know that he's not quite ready for a full season, workhorse load. So David Montgomery is just dominating in that time frame, and he gets the Panthers this week. But as good as as good as Ashley's running backs are about to be, where she struggles a lot is wide receiver. Jalen Waddle has already missed a game with injury. Last week he only had 46 yards. I don't even know how many. 5 targets, only 4 catches. I mentioned it in that week 1 game where Tua threw the ball I think 45 times, and Waddle was only targeted 5 of those. I don't know what's going on with Waddle. I don't know if Tua hates him. I don't know if Tyreek is that good. Obviously Achane showing up is taking away some targets out of the backfield. I just don't know what's going on with Waddle. I think we're due for a big game from him soon, but I don't know when that's coming, and I don't necessarily want to say it's this week. Adam Thielen had a dominant performance a couple weeks ago with Andy Dalton. Last week he put up respectable numbers, 76 yards, 11 points. But that's where Riley starts to shine. Stephon Diggs had a monster game against the Dolphins, but as I talked about with James Cook, I think there's a big possibility of a letdown spot. Plus, you have to worry about the early London game. AJ Brown also had a massive coming out party last week. Well, shit, he had 131 yards a week before, but 2 touchdowns, 2 massive touchdowns, 13 targets. I don't know if the yelling from Jalen Hurts helped, but there he is. It's really hard to predict this matchup just because you don't know what's going to come from Jonathan Taylor. Is he going to get a full workload? I guess there's a small possibility he still doesn't even play this week. Like I said, I don't know how you trust him any less than Najee Harris, so I think you start him. And kind of the same can be said for Saquon. What is that ankle like? Is he ready to take on a full workload? And if he is, does he have the same kind of explosiveness? I do think Raleigh has one more big week in him. Raheem Mostert should be fine. Zach Moss, I think, will still get at least kind of a 50% snap share in the first couple of weeks, if not even a little bit more. And David Montgomery's a workhorse, and I tell you, the wide receivers speak for themselves. I think Raleigh takes this win here, but Ashley needs a win just to get one in the column and kind of stay in the conversation. But I do think she's got a big stretch. I'm really excited to play her when I played her. I think there's a stretch coming if Jonathan Taylor can fully come back. But I think Riley gets the win this week. All right, Charlie versus John. Charlie, I'd put in the same boat of needing a win as desperately as Ashley does. I don't put him in the same boat of, kind of this rising tide that's ready to take over. Bijan Robinson, we've talked about. He's awesome. He's explosive. He's everything that we thought he would be. Sorry, Tim. Bijan is great. Outside of that, I don't really know where you get production out of this team. We saw a big week from Justin Fields, but it's the Broncos. They're giving up big weeks to everybody, despite what we thought about their defense going into the season. They look abysmal, and the Commanders actually have a really, really solid defense. I tend to think that game leans more towards a blowout than anything else, keeping with tradition of late primetime games. And there's really not anything else to talk about. I mean, Debo is explosive. Debo's awesome. But he had what? He had 3 rushes last week. That was it. That's all he got. McCaffrey, at some point, his touches have to slow down, I think, just out of load management. But I mean, he's getting everything. And what he's not getting, Ayuk is getting 60 yards down the field. George Kittle, kind of the same story. They'll have weeks, but I don't love them with any kind of consistency. John has had a big come up, big glow up. Anthony Richardson, the rushing's there. It's 2021 Jalen Hurts. Is he gonna put up 400 through the air? No, but he'll have at least 70 yards on the ground and probably a rushing touchdown, if not multiple. I talked about David Montgomery on Raleigh's team. At this point, Jahmyr Gibbs, you're just waiting for one explosive play to make it worth starting him. Has yet to crack 10 points this year. 7, 9, 8, 7. But he gets the Panthers this week. He gets one of, if not the worst. Sorry, guys. One of, if not the worst rosters in the NFL that he can really try to exploit and maybe have that breakout that we're all looking for. Terry McLaurin against the Bears is just silly. That's a 20 burger waiting to happen. This fucking guy, Jaden Reed. Christian Watson's back, so we've seen Jaden Reed kind of be the leader the first couple weeks with Dobbs there. And Jordan Love looks good. He gets a favorable matchup against the Raiders. I just don't know, how much pie there is to go around and how big his piece is going to be. But this should be a huge week for Garrett Wilson. Zach Wilson kind of maybe finally looks like he's settled in a little bit, and at the very least, he's got the Broncos. He should be able to break off a couple big passes, if not, a couple big touchdown runs. I love Garrett Wilson this week. Yeah, I mean, past that, it's a bad year for Charlie. Honestly, the roster is a little bit tough to look at. I think he's got another win or two in him, and he can get a big week out of Kittle and Debo, and maybe that's this week. Maybe the Cowboys really game plan for McCaffrey, slow him down a little bit, and you go to your other weapons. But I do think John picks up a victory here. Charlie drops to 1-4. John moves finally into a winning record on the season, and gets some momentum going to the back stretch, and kind of starts to lock in one of those lower to mid tier playoff spots going into the back half of the season. And last, but probably not, but definitely maybe least, we have two of the highest scorers in the league, in Tim and Trevor, fighting for last place. Loser here doesn't necessarily drop into last place. If everything goes as I think it should, you'll have Charlie and Ashley there, and I don't know what the tiebreakers are at this point. I'm not really interested in taking a look. I've talked about it ad nauseum with the Bills. Early London game letdown spot. I think Josh Allen has an average day at best. Not at best. I mean, it's Josh Allen, but I tend to think he has more of an average day than a crazy bonkers off the wall Josh Allen game. I don't think that from Tua. I think the Dolphins come back. This week is all the Dolphins are soft. They got exposed. Yada yada yada. And not that they're going to get to prove anything against the Giants, but if they go out there and lay a stinker against the Giants too, the wheels could really come off there. So I think they look to put up some points, and I think Tua has a big day for Tua Tunga all over. And obviously you start him over Trevor Lawrence in London, early game against the Bills, which actually, now that I think about it, because the Jags did get to stay over there, so he's a little bit accustomed to the times, had a little more time to adjust and settle in. Maybe he catches the Bills defense off guard, but you still start to him. Just a fun little thought experiment. Oh yeah, that's a big problem for Trevor actually, because Tyreek Hill's on the other side. So you really got to hope for a big Jalen Waddle game. And as I said before, I don't see that necessarily happening this week. Tyreek Hill, yeah, I mean, he's pretty much gone, every other week he's put up monster numbers. Yep, 39 down to 12, up to 26, down to 8. So if history's telling us anything, Tyreek Hill is going to put up just dominant numbers this week, which should mean a decent week from Tua. But yeah, I think Tyreek is going to outweigh that a little bit. We talked about the Lions playing the Panthers. Amon-Ra should run all over them. Jamar Chase, always fucking open. Jamar Chase against the Cardinals, he will literally always be open. Can Joe Burrow get on the ball? That'll be the big question mark. I do, like I said, I think the Bengals finally put it together a little bit this week. It's a good spot to get right. What does their schedule look like? Arizona, Seattle, and then a bye. I mean, those are two good games back to back to try to start to piece it together and then get a little bit of rest before you go to San Francisco, then play Buffalo. Yeah, they got a little bit of a gauntlet in the back half of the season. So I think they're looking at these two games as, we got to get something rolling here, and Joe Burrow's the guy. So I do like a little bit of a get right game out of Jamar Chase this week. And then Brian Robinson against the Bears. Holy shit. What a start. I love it. I mean, the Bears are giving up points to everyone. I think I could go for 80 and a touchdown against the Bears defense this season. It's bad. An interesting defensive matchup here. Dolphins Bills obviously played last week. Dolphins have not been great so far this season. 2 points, had -2 last week. A couple decent performances there against bad teams. But the Giants are allowing an average of 19.25 points to defenses, which is fucking hilarious. So you start that. The Bills, like I said, I do worry about a little bit with the Jacksonville Jags having time to kind of settle in London on their home field. against a defense that just had to travel and just is coming off of that huge game against Miami. As far as picking this one, it's pretty tough. I don't particularly love having to start Jerry Jeudy against the Jets. That sucks a lot. You don't have a choice. But that does suck, and I think that's a little bit of a kink in the armor here. I do think Tim pulls off the win this week. Tries to get going back in the right direction as the one of the highest scorers in the league and in last place. Trevor, I think it's deja vu all over again. I do think this tends to be another high scoring matchup between teams with losing records. I think Tim pulls it out. That is the week 5 weekly preview, everyone. Good luck this week. Good luck tomorrow night, tonight, whenever this video comes out, probably tonight, watching Commanders Bears. If you're gonna watch that, it's my anniversary, so I don't think I'll be watching that, but who knows, maybe I'll catch the end of it if it's a good game. It won't be. Yeah, good luck this week. Remember the wheel. Start your best team. See ya.